Welcome to the USA, where everyone needs a gimmick. I've listened to podcasts for a very long time, ever since I was pulled into listening to Coast for a while, and let me tell you, I'm glad that it didn't stick.
And in 1982, when I was working down there, I had a nervous breakdown, and I didn't tell anybody. I recovered by myself after a couple of months, and when I recovered, I was an antichrist. But that couldn't be because I was a homosexual and I was into pornography and stuff like that. So obviously I couldn't have been the real thing. He found that out pretty quickly.
Podcasts have been part of my life for a while now, and they are perfect for anyone on the go, looking for entertainment, or anyone else, really. In the most recent years, podcasts have been on the rise, almost like a trend. Who doesn't have a podcast? One time, I was out with 4 friends of mine, and between the 4 of us, we had 6 podcasts. It was honestly a bit of a bummer because it makes you realize that there's literally so much content in the world that it makes it impossible to see or hear it all. But in that haystack of audio media, the needle rises to the surface, and you just have to agree that they belong at the top of that pile. As podcasts evolved, they quickly had to get more and more interesting, and at a certain point, they began to need, pardon the pun, a gimmick. Podcasts began to need a little oomph to get noticed. And here's some examples of some really good ones. 14 to be exact. But some of these podcasts I'm about to talk to might not be the most mainstream, but they're some of my favorites and are heavily recommended. And a lot, if not all, are good examples of creative shticks to have in order to gain attention. Shows like Getting Dug with High, where it is the workings of an individual who is under the influence heavily. Like literally, that's the point. They have guests over to do the same, allegedly. Guests like Jack Black and Eric Andre. So you know where that's going to go. Doug Benson is the host and provides his guests and himself types of smoking apparatuses while discussing what they're smoking, 420, and anything else.
Fuck this, I'm not hanging out with you guys.
Too much.
Talk is Jericho. To any wrestling fans out there, and believe me, there's more than you think, I would suggest Talk is Jericho with the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla himself.
When was the integral moment when you let up to let him get that extra point?
Maybe with 30 seconds left in the third period. So, I had time to think about what I was going to do, and just looking at his coach, at his team, at Dusty, he'd built up this huge legacy, and, at that point in my life, I wasn't ready to destroy a man's world like that. Now, I don't care. Now I understand the world.
If you're telling the truth, this is like a great heel promo. There's an angle for you guys to look at the show.
This is a vicious lie.
Have you ever heard this before?
I have heard his version.
Okay.
Because I always, when people said you wrestle in high school, I always politely would just say yes. And I would never elaborate further. Because it was his job to say who won or who didn't. I didn't think he would take such a roundabout way to say that I won. It was by one point he wrestled up multiple weight classes. He was the best wrestler on his team. He just wasn't good enough that day.
Okay, see the reason he would just say yes, I wrestled in high school, because he doesn't want to have to explain that he was such a, for lack of a better term, he was such a dick to everybody.
A lot of the times his most interesting episodes involve his guests, which can be anywhere from a wrestler to anyone else in the music biz. And the conversations are very interesting for those who like to know insider exclusives and listen to your favorite superstars or musicians talk about their origins, fun, ribs, and favorite matches. But you might not trust Chris much after listening because he's so good at hiding those ad segues.
Honestly, DDP Yoga changed my life, and it probably saved my career both in wrestling and in music.
Everyone knows the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot, but what of the Kappa or an Aswang? If you're like me and love learning about cryptids but don't have weird travels to turn to anymore, man, I miss that show. I know it's nostalgia at this point, but God, they actually took it seriously. Anyway, Sexy Beast is a fun little podcast where Tony Cantwell and Mark Jago go over undistinguished myths and monsters, giving cool facts and fun commentary.
Using our patented FEC system to break down their fighting ability, evidence of existence, and cool factor, we guarantee you're going to be left with a lot more knowledge or skills if you ever find yourself in an episode of Buffy or a slasher movie or need to survive on the run.
They also use a system to rate them into their premier crypts to determine which cryptid is the best cryptid. They focus on fighting ability, evidence for their existence, and cool factor to determine their rating. And after all is said and done, they end the show with a real encounter sent in by fans. Usually ghosts.
And she said the gym is an open channel, so no matter where they go or live, the dead will always make contact through him.
That's... The music made that, to be honest. Like, I've heard that story before, but, like, my sphincter tightened when you're reading that.
So there you go, another episode of Freak Encounters. This time, could it have been Bigfoot? Could Mick have been Bigfoot?
Yes. I'm 100% yes. And I never lie.
You never lie.
Never lie.
As a vampire, it is illegal for you to lie.
If you love cryptids and want to learn more about them, but from people who don't take it too seriously, then you need to check out Sexy Beasts. Sans Pants Radio. This one is more of a pure recommendation, since I can't decide which of these podcasts to choose from. The entire channel, or radio, is filled with gems so different and fun you won't be able to decide which one to listen to first. Plumbing the Death Star, which takes an idea or question pertaining to something pop culture, like a movie, book, or television show. One example being, how would you survive a Groundhog Day, or are Muppets secondary citizens? It's always crazy like that.
Anyway, when we ask the important questions, like, how liable is Willy Wonka?
D&D is for nerds. This was the first contact I got with Dungeons & Dragons, and listening to fun people improvising what imaginary characters do in an imaginary world may not sound like a fun time, but it certainly becomes one when you let yourself listen.
There's nothing sadder than 4 grown-up individuals sitting in front of 60-odd people to play Dungeons & Dragons live. But that is exactly what we're doing here tonight.
Just good business. This one is probably the most creative, as it's 3 members of a family pitching wacky business ideas that I actually wish someone would actually make real.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of It's Just Good Business, the show where we pitch business ideas at each other and see what sticks.
I was thinking nightclub where everyone doesn't know what's going on.
I was thinking a bed cafe where you stay in bed. Right? The tables are beds.
I was thinking a fan that has a thing of water inside it that sprays a lot of water at your face, or Coke or Pepsi.
Moving pictures like Harry Potter.
Talking devices for your dogs, where the bark is converted into language.
Put parrots in your shirt.
I don't like that one.
Movie maintenance. Now this is a good podcast, but I had to stop listening when my favorite films are being picked apart. But it's also a really fun time for any film buff. But I still have to say, fuck you, Gabe.
She did annoying very, very well.
She was good for
I hated
her.
her.
I thoroughly enjoyed
Hated
watching
her.
That was great.
Also-
that was exactly what I want to watch in my superpowered PI noir drama.
Yeah.
Is that what the fuck is wrong with the writers of this show that they
Also-
think that is actually something that anybody in? I'm sorry, but as a writer, it shits me that somebody got paid to write this shit and put that fucking annoying piece of shit rape fest of a character in this show, and I had to sit there and watch her to get to the good stuff. In what world is that an acceptable thing for somebody to do?
All these podcasts and more are brought to you by the Sans Pants team. Two in the Think Tank is a show with 2 sketch comedians who saddle themselves with the goal of coming up with 5 sketches each episode, 7 if they're not that good.
You know, I mean, I realise we're defending genocide.
No. We're defending what you do with the bodies after genocide.
Right. Yeah. Because it is a crime to improperly dispose of a body.
That's right.
As far as I'm aware.
And that was Vlad that started that.
But if you do, the right things with it and you keep it neat, then no further crime has been done.
Yeah, at least it's limiting the atrocity.
Yes, a murder was committed.
Yeah, I can't do anything about that now.
No, the past is the past.
Yeah.
I can only deal with what's in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what that is a dismembered body. But what's quite tasteful is to arrange those body parts in order of height.
As comedians, both of them have the knowledge of a comedic timing and writing, which makes for an interesting look into what a writer's room sounds like, and it's also really funny.
Okay, so they really just emerge, like the vast majority emerge from just conversation. So the podcast is we just sit down opposite each other, literally for the duration of the podcast. It's not edited, and we riff. And that might sound awful. And look, it might actually be awful, but that is what we do.
Life is a hassle. Honestly, the idea of life is just a constant conflict, because if it wasn't, it would then just be a problem of boredom. I know that is too philosophical for what is essentially a podcast about responding to questions with the most absurd of answers, but that's what the advice show for the modern era is.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to My Brother, and Me, an advice show for the modern era. I'm your baby brother, Griffin McElroy.
I'm your middleest brother, Travis McElroy.
And joining us today, this is very exciting, very special guest, beloved J-pop hologram pop star, Hatsune Miku.
I'm Hatsune Miku.
Hatsune Miku, thank you for being here. I feel like your holographic nature is maybe lost based on the nature of our visual medium, but can you in fact confirm for us that you are a projected light specter?
I am being projected onto
What in the whole shit?
Run by, as the title says, three brothers, Justin McElroy, Travis McElroy, and Griffin McElroy. Three brothers who weirdly actually care about each other, which is different for people to hear and think about, I think. Sad, but true.
Let me one-up that, Justin. You're going to do a full-on...
That's actually the name of this fucking podcast, Travis.
A full-on Home Alone clown in the shower.
Oh,
What's
fuck.
that? You're in the closet. Stab, stab, stab.
You jump out of the closet to stab him. What the fuck? He's a clown balloon. What's that on the ceiling?
Daniel, why do you smell so bad? I haven't showered in 3 months.
It definitely adds to their comedy with their chemistry and good-natured fun. It makes the listening experience really wholesome to listen to. And at the time of recording, My Brother, and Me has over 300 episodes, which is absolutely crazy. So much content for anyone to enjoy, and no matter where you jump in, you will get to know these brothers and how genuine they are. Their laughter alone has been enough to sustain my humanity as I slave away at the soul-crushing establishment known as They take questions from fans all the time, but they also scour Yahoo for some of the most outrageous questions for them to dissect. Need advice? A laugh? Or a good gang of people to listen to? Then look no further than My Brother, and Me.
Everybody's got some needs, and everybody's got some wants. Extreme Restraints catalog of sexual products will fulfill both of those things for you. So visit extremerestraints.com and buy a sexual fish tank.
Do go on. Do you remember in high school when you were assigned research essays? This podcast is better than that, let's make that clear. They aren't some high schoolers doing half-ass research on topics they don't care about.
Well, it's the same thing as being embalmed, just on a higher scale. And if you're a world leader or a former dictator worth your weight, you'll want to be stuffed and put on display. So people that are on display include Vladimir Lenin, you can see in Red Square in Moscow. Since 1924, he's been sitting there.
Are you kidding me?
He has mild bleachings and soaks in glycerol and potassium acetate every year. That's right, so he's there. The embalmed body of Ho Chi Minh is preserved and cooled in Hanoi in Vietnam. In North Korea, both Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il are embalmed and put on display in Kim Il-sung's former residence. You can go, North Koreans go and see them. They are kept inside the building that is called the Cum Susan, which I really enjoy saying. Socialist leader.
No, I'm not done with Cum
Susan. It's good.
Three persons cycle through each other each week discussing interesting topics they've researched and are ready to talk about. It's honestly a very fun podcast filled with interesting topics that can come from anywhere from the Loch Ness Monster to the Beatles. If you still want to feel like your time hasn't been wasted, then listen to Do Go On, and you might learn something.
Which I found surprising, because when I visit Alaskan wilderness, I go for the hanging, but I stay for the fretting. That was the closest thing to a joke that I wrote in this report.
And when you wrote that, what noise did you make afterwards?
I went, oh, there's no time, keep writing. Show's about to start.
Sleepycast. If you're on YouTube enough, then you might have heard of these guys once or twice. Sleepycast has no real conversational gimmick like other podcasts do. The only thing that is a hook for these men in blights is that they have a reputation on the internet, in one form or another. Animators mostly, but they have had others on. One reason I think they might be as popular as they are is that they don't care. They say whatever and don't care about the backlash from fans or others. They're raunchy as well, to the point where I even stopped listening for a bit.
Corey, son, I'll let you go, but you have to tell me a funny joke because you're a funny guy apparently. That's what the internet says apparently. So
my dad doesn't know anything about my.
Well, let's say he does.
This is
hypothetical
situation.
Yeah, tell your dad a funny joke.
Tell me a joke.
Hypothetical
And tell me a joke, and
Son, if you can make me laugh.
I'll go shove a
I'll
ruler
go
up my
upstairs
ass and leave you alone.
Yeah, I'll go upstairs and jack off and go to sleep.
Yeah, go.
Tell a funny
He
joke.
puts his hands on his hips. He's like, "All right, I'm ready."
Trust me, buddy man.
Dad, jokes aren't funny. They're delivery.
He's standing there with a hard wiener, and you're gonna be like, Dad, jokes aren't funny.
Listen, his dick is throbbing in front of you, and all you have to do is say a joke,
do
and
that
you
thing
can
where it goes
leave.
like this, where it fucking-
You can walk out and never have to.
What if it's not funny? What if I'm like, what did the chicken say to the road?
What did the chicken? What did the chicken say to the road?
And then he fucked you. You fucked up.
you lost.
But if you want to laugh and be grossed out a bit, you got these boys to thank.
President Coy, that is, you're running for re-election. What is your policy on Israel?
We gotta get more foot jobs, more foot job focused stuff there.
Sir, what is your policy on the two-state solution? Do you support that or oppose that?
If they can only show their ankles, we gotta pass a law to at least be able to show half their face.
He's so right. He's so right.
Is This the Podcast? Where the premise is literally coming up with the ideas for what the podcast could be about. They have had ideas from Stage Dive, where comedians and stage performers would come on and think about times they've died on stage.
It's called Stage Dive, but it's spelt DIE-VE.
Oh.
Stage Dive. And our performers come on and they talk about weird experiences they've had at gigs.
Okay.
Sort of weird ones. So I've got a whole bunch. That's what I love talking about myself. I decided to come out next thing with my pants down.
Dave, we do have a judge in the studio today that Dave is talking directly to. I should point that out.
Yeah. Oh, I know. With my semi-erect.
Which is one of my favorite episodes. Or another where they talk about crushes they've had in the past. There's so many more that are even more wacky and funny. I really found myself enjoying the story that was being told in it. You think there isn't a story, but with a stationary cast in anything, as the show continues, you get attached to them. And believe me, I have listened to all of this podcast, and it gets surprisingly emotional and very good. Go check it out, and you'll see what I mean.
Hello and welcome to Is This the Podcast? My name is Ben Vanel.
I'm Peter Jones. I'm Roland Hoffman.
And this is a podcast about podcasts. We all want to do one together, but we haven't picked the perfect idea. So each week we get together and we pitch podcasts in the hopes of finding the best one, but we haven't yet, so we're back again.
Beer Eye for your mates, guys. You know that podcast I was literally just talking about? Well, this is the spin-off from that. One of the podcast ideas that they fell in love with, for the most part, is called Beer Eye for Your Mates Guys, an atrocious play on words of the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy show that was on years ago. The premise is literally people swapping stories about times they got sloshed. Now, I don't drink, but as I listened to it more and more, it made me want to drink, and it also didn't. See what you think of the show for a bit, and then get back to me.
Hello and welcome to Beer Eye with your mates, guys, the sister podcast to Is This the Podcast?
Thank you for having me, Murphy.
Say the title.
On Beer Eyes with your mates, guys.
Thank you. Cool. All right, this has been Beer Eye with your mates, guys. And as we always say here on Beer Eye with your mates, guys, see you on the next episode.
The Weekly Planet! The Weekly Planet! Mr. Sunday Movies podcasts are about all things geeky, a real romp with the two boys, James and famous internet celebrity, Nick Mason. They add their thoughts and opinions on the geek culture of the modern era in today's day and age, but they also don't get too heated over everything, and they take it with a grain of salt and having a fun time with everything they do.
But basically, Galactus was about to eat the Earth.
Just about to tuck in.
Yeah, about to tuck in, and Reed Richards is like, I better put a stop to that. And so he goes up to the moon, and he talks to the Watcher. And he's like, how do I stop Galactus with whatever? And the Watcher's like, I can't interfere, but there's the ultimate nullifier. And he's like, oh, great.
He's like, what?
Yeah.
Help!
It does all these things, and here's the instruction manual, but I can't interfere.
Yeah. Well, thanks for nothing.
I'm going to turn my back. As the Watcher, I'm gonna stop watching for a second.
Yes.
And if I turn back and the ultimate nullifier's gone, I ain't gonna ask no questions. And Reed Richards is like, what do you mean? Help me out here. Come on.
Welcome to Night Vale. To whoever listens to this fun and creepy find understands just how creative and captivating it can be through the use of storytelling alone. It really just allows for a sense of the unknown and outlandish to be pushed on anyone. Do you believe in angels, aliens, or the dog park? Then you might have to speak to the mayor about why there is no dog park.
Here's something odd. There is a cat hovering in the men's bathroom at the radio station here. He seems perfectly happy and healthy, but it's floating about 4 feet off the ground next to the sink. Wish it wasn't trapped in a hovering prison in the men's bathroom, but listen, no pet is perfect. It becomes perfect when you learn to accept it for what it is.
This podcast might be the spiritual embodiment of the word what? Like X-Files if Mulder was a radio show host and Scully was a backwards insane cult and angel-filled town known as Night Vale. And now, the weather.
A friendly desert community where the sun is hot, the moon is beautiful, and mysterious lights pass overhead while we all pretend to sleep. Welcome to Night Vale.
The worst idea of all time is a film podcast, in the sense that it speaks of one film each year, one singular film. These beautiful and glorious men spend their time consensually subjecting themselves to the same warm malice of one film every week for a year. 52 weeks of them watching the same film over and over and reviewing it each time as they slowly slip into madness, anger, and hate for the film, each other, and themselves.
This fucking movie, eh? It's just like finished for... It's just scene after scene after scene after scene after scene. What is it amounting to? Nothing. We're on a freight train to nowhere. Just arrives at a bridge with unfinished railing. We go careening off the fucking thing into the water, into the rocks, and we all just wallow around in the shallows, crying, impaled. So what I like about this thing...
Tim Batt and Guy Montgomery have gone through 3 seasons at the time of recording, the first season being a very romantic year with the film Grown Ups 2, which saw them come up with side segments where they would try to discover why certain characters were the way they were, and it only makes the film better listening to their madness.
Paddy's Woods, party time, it's Paddy's Woods, party time. Paddy's Woods, party time, it's Paddy's Woods, party time. I just want some niggas coming to the party. It's bringing friends Irish with them cause they did it. It's bringing six bills, they Bud Light bills. It's lit, Terminator, he's Paddy. Paddy's Woods, party time, it's Paddy's Woods, party time.
The other 2 seasons were Sex and the City 2 and We Are Your Friends, which only made it worse for the 2. With Sex and the City's 2.5-hour long runtime, and We Are Your Friends' lack of a movie, their words not mine, they went to depth no sane men can return from.
There's one number we haven't been able to crack yet, right? Correct. That's the number where we get money. Income gained, which is net -0. That's right, we're losing money constantly. This is a money grab. Do I have to spell it out for you people? A money grab. M-O-N.
Now, before I go into the next podcast, I just want to throw this in right now because I really just want to use this as a time capsule for me in the future. Can I just talk about how much I love these boys? They are so funny and heartwarming, really good gents who sound so genuine and thoughtful. They were on a small TV show once where they did a bit called the Lou Review, where Tim would review bathrooms and Guy would get so upset about how popular it got. It had me in stitches the type of comedy they work in. Honestly, they are 2 wonderful human beings and I cannot endorse them enough.
Crap, the 1 week I'm actually quite keen to take this seriously.
13, ladies and gentlemen.
You don't even review the toilet, you don't even look for a Dyson Airblade.
There wasn't one.
Yeah, so put it in your review.
0 out of 5 for Dyson Airblades.
Now you've got like 10 different criteria!
And one of my absolute top favorites, if not my absolute favorite, from the McElroy brothers, comes The Adventure Zone.
With that, the box pops open. It has 900 gold pieces inside.
I get it.
Way to persevere.
We can't take these. This is
Nope, totally
bad.
can.
No,
Listen.
I keep staring at Taco.
No, listen.
I don't blink.
Insurance will cover this. It's fine.
Listen, it's a bank.
This is a victimless crime.
We're not looting.
FDIC will cover this.
We're literally stopping a bank robbery.
I keep staring at Taco.
Just because you found money in a bank doesn't mean that you could just take it with you.
I put the money in the bag for
staring.
safekeeping.
Great, I grabbed some chairs. I grabbed furniture. Why are we looting? This isn't a dungeon. People do business here.
At first, this show doesn't seem like much, but a cheesy and maybe even memey D&D podcast. But as you go into it and stick with it, you will absolutely fall in love with the characters of Magnus Burnsides, Taco, and Merle Highchurch. And so many even more fantastic characters, not to mention the amazing Dungeon Master and Griffin McElroy.
And he looks down at you and he comes up with a voice for himself very quickly. Hello. Oh, new passengers. I haven't met you. Welcome. What is this?
I instantly regret this voice.
I'm doing my best. Welcome to... Are you making fun of my voice? How could I be sad? I've got new passengers to welcome to the... God damn it, can I talk?
They have now continued into different stories and games like Fate, Urban Shadows, and Monster of the Week rather than just D&D. And the show has gotten even better thanks to the diversity they strive for. But please, start at the first episode. I know it's hard, but you won't regret it. They go on journeys into the world that you heavily get invested in and are able to live in it through the description the characters put in your heads through their words, actions, and emotions. Absolutely breathtaking the show becomes as the story progresses, and moments will come to cause goosebumps and moments of pure jump for joy human spirit. If this show doesn't cause you to have an emotional reaction, then you might have to check your pulse or check your ears because the Adventure Zone will make you laugh, cry, and hunger for more. Like bait to a fish, everyone needs a hook, or a gimmick. And these podcasts I just listed has one or many. They've all climbed to the top and made amazing shows, but they won't stay there forever. Like a game of King of the Hill, someone can and will dethrone them. Maybe it's one of you. Stay hungry, stay busy, and stay patient. If you build it, they will come. But until then, clear your schedules, gentlemen. Shut up, Jace. Shut up, Jace. Shut up. Hey, Jace, shut up. Recording. Yeah. And stay patient. Son of a bitch. Get out of here. Stay hungry. What the fuck? I'm recording. It mixes well horror and comedy, but twists a more dark and... Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch, shut up, Jace! What are you screaming about? Every time I record! Holy fuck! Son of a bitch! And keep an ear... Son of a bitch, Jace, shut the fuck up! No!